My name is Charlotte. I'm 59 years old. And if you told me 2 years ago that my own daughter would one day look me in the eye and treat me like a burden, I wouldn't have believed you. But life has a cruel way of revealing people's true colors, especially when you're at your lowest. I spent my entire adult life building a home in Wilmington, North Carolina, with my late husband, Samuel. Every holiday we hosted, every dollar we saved, every late night spent worrying, it was all for our daughter, Evelyn. When cancer took Samuel last spring, I clung to the only family I had left, my daughter. I sold the house we built with our hands, the one with creaky floors and sunlight that poured into the kitchen every morning, because it hurt too much to stay. Evelyn and her husband Jason invited me to stay with them for a while. At least Evelyn did. Jason barely muttered a word when I arrived. I took the smallest room, cooked meals, cleaned, and tried not to take up too much space. But no matter how small I made myself, Jason's resentment grew, and my daughter's silence hurt worse than any insult ever could. If you've ever felt like a burden to your family, don't stay silent. Build back bigger. Press 1 if you believe in reclaiming your worth, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder. Karma has great timing. It happened on a Wednesday. I remember because I had spent the whole afternoon making chicken and herb pot pie, Jason's favorite, though he never said thank you. Evelyn sat at the dinner table, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging the food I had placed in front of her. Jason was nursing a beer, staring at the TV across the room. The silence was thick, like fog rolling in before a storm. Then it broke. "You know," Jason said casually, eyes never leaving the screen, "maybe it's time we stop pretending this setup is temporary." I blinked. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He looked at me then, a smirk tugging at the edge of his mouth. "I mean, how long is this supposed to go on? You're not working. You're not paying rent. We didn't sign up to feed extra mouths." My heart dropped into my stomach. I looked at Evelyn, begging with my eyes for her to say something, to defend me, to stop him. But she didn't. She just stared down at her plate and mumbled, "Maybe it's best if you found something more stable." I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I got up from the table, walked to the small room in the back, and packed my life into 2 suitcases. That's all I had left. 2 bags and a dozen broken memories. No hugs, no apology, not even a walk to the door. I stepped outside into the biting cold, the wind cutting through my coat like knives. I sat on the curb for nearly an hour, the battery on my phone long dead, my heart even deader. That night, I found a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind with flickering signs and buzzing vending machines that eat your change. I lay on the stiff mattress staring at the ceiling, asking myself the question no mother ever wants to ask. What did I do so wrong that my own child turned me away? Over the next few weeks, I texted Evelyn. Small things. "Just checking in. I love you. Hope you're okay." Birthdays, holidays, no response, not even a read receipt. I tried to get work, anything, but the world isn't kind to widows in their 50s with no recent work history. I applied at diners, front desks, even offered to clean houses. But my back ached, my hands shook, and no one wanted what I could offer. The loneliness settled in like dust. And worse than the silence was the shame. I had spent my life giving Evelyn everything, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar saved, and she tossed me aside like a piece of unwanted furniture. I thought that was the end of my story. But I was wrong, because one night in that dingy motel, I opened an old leather-bound book I had forgotten I packed. My mother's diary, and what I read inside didn't just change my life. It unlocked a secret that would change everything. I almost didn't open the diary. It had been buried beneath old photographs and folded letters, things I couldn't bring myself to throw away even when my life fit into 2 suitcases. I remember sitting on that motel bed, the flickering lamp casting shadows on the stained wallpaper, my fingers trembling as I flipped to the first page. My mother's handwriting, elegant, looping, familiar, leapt off the paper like a voice from the past. At first, the entries were mundane: grocery lists, Sunday sermons, complaints about neighbors. But then, in the middle of a June entry, everything changed. "He came again today," she wrote. "He said he wished things were different, that he wished he could claim me, claim our daughter. But he has a family, a name to protect. Charlotte must never know." I froze. My breath caught. I read it again. Charlotte must never know. I flipped through the pages, faster now. Entry after entry. Secret meetings, hotel rooms, small envelopes of cash she tried to refuse. And always the same initials, HJS. Then one line that made my heart stop. "He promised me that if anything ever happened to him, he would make sure Charlotte had something. Through his lawyer, Mr. Leonard Goldstein." That name hit me like a punch. I had seen it before, on a manila folder my mother once kept locked in a drawer. I had asked about it as a teenager. She told me it was nothing important. I never asked again. Suddenly, nothing made sense, and everything made sense. I spent the next 2 days at the motel's shared computer, searching for Leonard Goldstein. Finally, I found him, retired estate attorney, still listed under a firm in Dallas. I couldn't bring myself to call. My hands shook too much. So instead, I wrote a letter, a real one, ink on paper, explaining who I was, who my mother had been, and begging him to tell me if what I'd read was true. 2 weeks passed. Then one morning, my prepaid phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Charlotte?" A warm, crackling voice asked. "I've been expecting this call for years." The next day, I took a Greyhound to Dallas. Leonard met me in a quiet office filled with the scent of old books and polished wood. He handed me a letter, its edges yellowed with time. It was from Harold James Sterling, the founder of Sterling Energy, one of the most powerful oil firms in Texas. "My dearest Charlotte," the letter began, "you are my blood. I failed you in life, but in death, I will do right by you." The letter detailed a hidden trust, uncatalogued, off the books, buried in a web of accounts designed to protect his legacy. It was mine, all of it: bank records, title deeds, an investment portfolio, over $1.2 million. And just like that, I wasn't a discarded mother anymore. I was an heir. And I wasn't going back to Wilmington the same woman they had cast out. I didn't return to Wilmington right away. After leaving Leonard Goldstein's office, I wandered through the streets of Dallas in a daze. I ordered coffee I didn't drink, walked through parks I didn't know, and watched people laugh, argue, and live. I didn't envy them anymore. I studied them. I wondered how many of them carried secrets in their pockets the way I now carried mine. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something shift inside me. Not hope exactly, something sharper, something sturdier, clarity. That night in my motel room, I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I just stared at the ceiling and whispered, "They thought they erased me," and I smiled. In the days that followed, I transformed. I started dressing differently, not flashy, but intentional. Polished, Invisible in a new way. The kind of invisible that opens doors instead of closing them. I watched hours of videos on real estate law, investing, and contract negotiations. Not to build an empire. No, I wasn't after power for power's sake. I was building armor. I would never be vulnerable again. And then I found it. A listing buried on a distressed properties auction site, a mid-sized apartment complex in East Wilmington. Structurally sound, a little worn, but affordable, thanks to a tax default. It was the same building where Evelyn and Jason lived. My heart pounded. I didn't hesitate. With Mr. Goldstein's help, I formed an LLC, an anonymous shell company. Within weeks, the paperwork was filed, the offer placed, and the deal sealed. Quiet, legal, under the radar. I now owned the very building they once kicked me out of with 2 suitcases and a whisper of shame. I stared at the deed and said aloud, "Let's see how Jason likes paying rent to the extra mouth he couldn't feed." A month later, notification letters went out. Rents would be reevaluated, leases revised. Jason and Evelyn's rent tripled. Backdated fees added, strict terms applied. I didn't need to see Jason's reaction. I could feel it. The tremble of a man whose control had just been stripped away. Evelyn called me for the first time in months. I let it go to voicemail. "Hi, Mom. I don't know if you heard, but our rent just tripled. Jason's freaking out. Can we talk?" I didn't answer, not out of cruelty, but because this wasn't vengeance. It was gravity. They needed to feel the weight of their choices. The silence I'd been drowning in, now it was theirs. I passed the building once at night. Their lights were on. I saw Evelyn pacing, Jason yelling. I watched for only a moment. Then I drove away. Even then, part of me still wanted her to run out, to say, "I'm sorry," but she didn't. So I turned the wheel, gripped it tighter, and whispered, "This isn't punishment. This is the consequence." And for the first time, I wasn't the one being erased. I was the one writing the story. Owning that building changed more than just my circumstances. It changed me. I didn't walk with my head down anymore. I didn't second-guess my words, my steps, or my worth. I was no longer the woman who cried silently into a motel pillow. I was Charlotte, the woman whose name was quietly printed on a deed Jason would never see, yet whose decisions shaped every corner of his daily life. I didn't gloat. I didn't lash out. I simply moved. Through my LLC CL holdings, I approved small but meaningful repairs around the complex. New lighting in the halls, updated locks, improved landscaping. Tenants noticed. Compliments started trickling into the property manager's inbox. Except from one unit, Jason's. He sent in a series of bitter complaints. "The water pressure sucks. The new mailbox system is a joke. This rent increase is extortion." Each email was forwarded to me. Each one made me smile. Jason didn't move. I knew he wouldn't. That would feel like defeat. And Evelyn. She stayed behind him as always. Quiet, resigned, slowly fading under the weight of a life she couldn't admit was crushing her. I began attending real estate meetups under a pseudonym. Nobody asked about my past. They saw a poised, sharp-eyed woman with capital and confidence. I was finally becoming the woman my mother had glimpsed in me, the one she protected with whispered secrets in a hidden diary. Then one afternoon, everything changed again. I passed Evelyn in the parking lot. She didn't see me. I wore sunglasses, my hair pulled into a sleek twist, my steps quick and focused. She looked exhausted, skin pale, movements sluggish. Her cart was filled with basic groceries, eggs, rice, store-brand pasta. I followed her at a distance, through aisles of canned soup and day-old bread. Then I watched her pick up a small box of macaroni and cheese, stare at it, and slowly put it back. That broke something in me. Not because I enjoyed seeing her suffer. I didn't. I ached. I ached for the little girl who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms. For the one who asked me every night to check for monsters under the bed. And now, she was living with one. Back home, I sat in silence for hours. Not out of guilt, not out of regret, but because I understood something vital. This wasn't about making her hurt. This was about letting her see, letting her sit in the silence she had allowed to fester. Jason's rage began to show. Tenants whispered about the yelling. Maintenance reported strange requests. Evelyn? She looked like a ghost in the lobby. But still, I waited, because I wasn't just playing defense anymore. This was a chess match now, and I had learned how to move in silence. And my next move? It wasn't to punish. It was to open a door. One Evelyn would have to walk through herself, if she ever found the courage to knock. The knock came on a rainy Thursday evening. Software. Hesitant. I almost didn't answer, but when I looked through the peephole and saw Evelyn, soaked, clutching a paper grocery bag to her chest like a life raft, I froze. She looked hollow. Her eyes were swollen, her clothes wrinkled. She hadn't worn makeup, and her hair, once perfectly styled, was tied back in a messy, lopsided bun. I opened the door without a word. She stepped in slowly, her shoes squeaking on the hardwood floor. I handed her a towel. Neither of us said anything until I placed a mug of chamomile tea in front of her and sat across the table. "I don't know where to start," she said softly, her voice rasping. He's not who I thought he was." I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch. It gave her the space she needed. "I told myself it was stress," she continued, "that if I just held on long enough, supported him enough, loved him enough, he'd change." She looked up, eyes brimming. "But love doesn't fix cruelty. It just gives it a place to live." I said nothing. I just listened. For the first time in years, Evelyn wasn't defending Jason. She wasn't deflecting. She was telling the truth. She pulled a small object from her coat pocket and placed it gently on the coffee table. "My mother's diary. I found it tucked behind some boxes," she said. "I wasn't trying to snoop. I saw her handwriting and I read it." Her hands were trembling. "Mom, I didn't know. About Harold Sterling. About you. About the trust." I swear I nodded once. "Neither did I." She exhaled, something between a breath and a sob. "You were always the strongest person I knew, and I let him treat you like trash." I stood there. I said nothing. That silence, it was louder than anything I could have screamed. I looked at her long and hard, not with judgment, but with the deep ache of a mother who'd watched her daughter choose someone else over her again and again. "You didn't just stand there," I said quietly. "You stood with him." That shattered her. "I know," she whispered, covering her mouth. "I think about it every night. I can't undo it. I can't erase it. But I can leave it behind. I left him." My eyes widened. She continued, voice trembling. "He went through my phone again. Accused me of hiding something. Said you were poisoning me. That I'd turned against him. So when he stormed out, I changed the locks. I don't want that life anymore." I looked at the woman in front of me. My daughter, yes, but also someone entirely new. Bruised, broken, but awake. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, "but I'm here because I miss you, and I'm ready to learn how to stand beside someone who never stopped loving me. I didn't cry. I simply reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. And in that moment, something shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. The meeting notice went out quietly. Just a simple flyer in the building lobby and an email marked mandatory. I knew Jason would show up. He couldn't resist the idea of confrontation. He needed a face to blame, a person to shout at. He had no idea that person would be me. The day of the tenant meeting, I arrived early. I wore a charcoal blazer and dark jeans, my hair soft around my shoulders. No makeup, just clear eyes and a steady heart. The common room slowly filled. Tenants trickled in, sipping coffee, scrolling on their phones. Then the door burst open. Jason stormed in like he owned the place. Evelyn trailed behind him, quiet, eyes downcast. He went straight to the property manager. "Where is she?" he snapped. "I want to speak to the person in charge." "All questions will be addressed during the meeting," the manager replied calmly. Jason scoffed, arms crossed. I sat at the back, quiet. When the manager thanked CL Holdings for their contributions and said, "The owner is here today," I stood up and walked to the front. Every head turned. Jason's face twisted. Evelyn's mouth fell open. "My name is Charlotte," I said softly. "I'm the owner of this building." Silence, then Jason exploded. You? This is a joke." "No," I said calmly. "This is business." He stepped forward, voice rising. "You've been behind this the whole time? The rent hike, the notices. You're trying to ruin us." I didn't flinch. "I made necessary improvements. Everyone pays the same market rate. What I didn't do was throw anyone out with 2 suitcases and no place to go." The room was silent. Then Evelyn stepped forward, her voice shaking but firm. "Stop, Jason," she said. "She's not your enemy. She never was. You are." He stared at her like she had slapped him. But this wasn't Evelyn the shadow anymore. This was Evelyn finding her spine. After the meeting, he tried to threaten me, hissed something about making an enemy for life. I just looked at him and said, "I didn't make an enemy. You made a mistake." He stormed off. A week later, he was gone. No goodbye, no explanations. Just a note left on the kitchen counter and a storm of unpaid bills behind him. Evelyn moved into a small studio near her job. She started therapy, joined a local art group. She brought me a painting one day, a phoenix rising through red and gold. I hung it above my fireplace. We didn't speak every day, but when we did, it was honest, it was real. I sold the building that spring, quietly, no grand farewell, just a pen stroke and a silent goodbye to the pain it once held. I donated half of the proceeds to a shelter for women like me, the kind of place I wish I'd known existed. And the rest? I bought a small cottage in the same neighborhood where I once raised my daughter. Evelyn helped me unpack. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. She was home, and so was I. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent and stand tall. Charlotte didn't scream. She didn't retaliate with rage. She transformed her pain into power, quiet, deliberate, unshakable. When those closest to her turned their backs, she learned that true strength doesn't come from others. It comes from knowing your worth, even when no one else sees it. Forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a process. And sometimes it starts with choosing peace over vindication. Charlotte didn't win by shouting louder. She won by listening to herself, honoring her story, and walking away from the wreckage with her dignity intact. In the end, she wasn't the woman they discarded. She became the woman they would never forget. Because when the world tries to erase you, your quiet survival becomes the loudest legacy of all. If you've ever felt invisible, betrayed, or discarded, know this: you are not powerless. You don't need $1 million to reclaim your story. Start by standing firm in your truth. Set boundaries. Say no. Learn something new. Invest in your peace. Whether you're rebuilding after heartbreak, walking away from toxicity, or rediscovering who you are, let Charlotte's story remind you that healing takes time, but every small act of self-respect adds up. You don't need permission to rise. You just need courage. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and share with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if today's story touched your heart, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, stay well, and see you in the next story.